Hey guys, and welcome back to another doll customizing video. In today's last video for the month of October, I will be creating a witch. But to end off this month with a bang, I decided to make this witch a very tall girl. I knew I had the perfect doll for this project, so let's go ahead and get started. For my custom witch, I am using this 18-inch Batgirl from the DC Superhero Girl line. The reason I thought this doll was perfect for a witch was the orange hair, and it's perfectly styled into these curls, and I think it's a very witch kind of hair color and style, so I really wanted to use her, especially since she was very tall too. And so to start this custom, I'm using my 100% pure acetone remover and Q-tips to remove her factory face. After spraying her with one layer of MSC, I move on to blushing. I decided to blush her very lightly because I knew that this doll was a different head shape for me, so I didn't want to have to erase the blushing later if I made a mistake on the eyes. I also take a red pastel to add to the lips, but I end up using a red watercolor pencil to go over it, so this step was kind of useless in the end. And I was right about the head mold giving me trouble. This is about my third attempt at the eyes. They're pretty even by now, but this was very hard considering that it was a larger head. I would have thought it would have been easier, but no. Next, I move on to the eyebrows, and I use a light orange watercolor pencil to lightly sketch them in. This orange is a little bit lighter than her hair color, so I do go in with a slightly darker orange to make it match a little bit better. And with this eyebrow complete, I go ahead and do the other side. Now I take my slightly darker orange to add to the inner part of her eyebrows. And to make them stand out a little bit more, I take this dark brown watercolor pencil to add to the end of her eyebrows. Next, I take this cream watercolor pencil to highlight the underpart of her eyebrow. Next, I take the same dark brown watercolor pencil that I used for her eyebrows to go over her top eyeliner. Even though I do use black in her outfit, I didn't want to use a black watercolor pencil on her face because black tends to give a more serious face and I wanted to keep it sweet. Next, I take my light brown watercolor pencil to lightly sketch in a pupil. Even though I did want this to be a sweet witch, I still wanted her to seem mischievous, so I decided to offset her pupils to the left. That way it looks like she's glancing off to the side. Then I take my white watercolor pencil to fill in the rest of the eye. I also go over the waterline using my pink watercolor pencil. Then I take a dark brown watercolor pencil to give her more of a nostril. Moving on to her lips, I take my red watercolor pencil to outline her lips, and then I use the same watercolor pencil to fill them in. Then I take the same cream watercolor pencil that I used to highlight underneath her eyebrows to highlight the upper part of her lip. And since the molding is kind of flat on the top part of her lip, I use the same cream watercolor pencil and a brown watercolor pencil to kind of shape a little bit more of a lip form. Moving back to the eyes, I take my white watercolor pencil to give her an eye shine, and I take a dark brown watercolor pencil to shade the top half of her eye and darken up the center part of her eye. Then I take a dark green watercolor pencil to shade the bottom half of her eye, and I use a light brown watercolor pencil to kind of shade the top half and the middle part where the green and the brown connect. Then with that same cream watercolor pencil, I use it to highlight the inner part of her eyes. And before spraying her with another layer of MSC, I decide to reshape her eyelashes and give her a few more using that dark brown watercolor pencil. I also take that same dark brown watercolor pencil to give her her bottom eyelashes. After spraying her with another layer of MSC, I went ahead and did the right side of her face, going over the same existing colors, and as you can see, there's a pretty big difference. The left side looks a little bit more grainy, while the right side pretty much covered up all those missing spots. Since she is pretty much done, I decided to do purple pastels instead of using a purple watercolor pencil because I wanted the eyeshadow to feel a little bit lighter. Then I take a light brown watercolor pencil to extend the lines of her smile. Then I take the same dark brown watercolor pencil that I used for the ends of her eyebrows to give her a few eyebrow hairs in the center part. And with the same cream watercolor pencil, I use it to highlight a few of the eyebrow hairs just to give it a bit more dimension. Then I take my white watercolor pencil to give her a glare at the bottom half of her eye. While editing this, it kind of creeped me out because it looks like she's looking directly into the camera. Then I take a light purple watercolor pencil to highlight the top of her eyeliner. And before finishing her face up with a final layer of MSC, I take my light brown watercolor pencil to give her lips a bit more dimension by giving her a few creases. I also kind of repeat the same process by taking a light pink watercolor pencil to give her a bit of a shine to her lips. And after spraying her face with a final layer of MSC, I take my Pearl X powder to give her face a bit more of a shine. Here she is with her face up complete, so now it is time to move on to her clothes and accessories. In between waiting for the layers of MSC to dry, I decided to go ahead and repaint her shoes and her nails using black acrylic paint. After repainting her nails using the black acrylic paint, I decided to use a high gloss varnish to go over the nails to make them a bit more shiny. And after painting her entire shoe a matte black, I decided to use the same high gloss varnish to go over the eyelets, the front part of her shoe, and her sole. And even though this is a pretty simple repaint for the shoes, her outfit is going to cover them anyways, so I thought this was okay. Next, I decided to work on her outfit, and as I was deciding on what to make her, I realized that my past Halloween customs all wore pants, so I decided to make this girl a dress. And the patterns you see here I actually made from scratch. I basically sketched an idea onto a piece of paper and then held it up to her and just kind of made adjustments. And this is the pattern I made for her puff sleeve. I actually think I should have made it a little bit more puffier, but it was okay in the end since her hair covered the sleeves anyways. And I'm not really sure why, but I made the sleeves 2 pieces. I pretty much could have made them connected when I cut them out. And since this doll is way bigger compared to Ever After High and Monster High dolls, I needed to give her darts in her bodice or else the fabric wouldn't lay properly on her. I didn't remove too much, but I think this definitely did help the fabric lie closer to her body. After connecting the front piece to the 2 back pieces, I used this spider fabric to give her a center strip down the middle. Then I used this thin purple ribbon to give a bit more detail to the front. After using some Fabri-Tac glue to attach the purple ribbon, I went ahead and hemmed the collar. Next, I take the 2 parts of the sleeve and attach them together, and I also gathered the puffy part for the sleeve. After attaching both sleeves to the top, I went ahead and finished off the top by closing off the sleeves. Then very carefully, I go ahead and turn the top right side out. And for the bottom part of her dress, I decided to make her a circle skirt. And I could say that using 2 different spider tulle fabrics was an artistic choice. It really was because I just didn't have enough fabric to do a full skirt of one of the other colors. This outfit for this witch is pretty much based off the costume I am making for my little sister for Halloween. She is also going to be a witch, and this fabric is left over from the outfit I made her. So after sewing the black velvet and the spider tulle together at the waist, I sew it back onto the top. And since the purple spider tulle and the orange spider tulle meet at the very middle part of the skirt, I center the top in that very middle position so that it is even on both sides. And as you can see, a circle skirt leads to a very poofy skirt, and even though this dress is a circle skirt pattern, the black velvet wanted to pull the bottom part of the dress down flat, so to help this, I gathered this black tulle and placed it underneath the dress to make it a little bit more poofier. And to finish off the dress, I take this thicker green ribbon and tie it around her waist. Moving on to her main accessory, I am making her hat. So to make this hat, I measured the circumference of her head, and I guess the center part of the circle, the radius was about 6 centimeters, and the longer part up to the brim is 16 centimeters. For this hat, I ended up making 3 of these circles. The first 2 I glued together and layered with this spider fabric for the under part of the hat. And for the pointy part of her hat, I simply made this cone and put the round part around the cone, and I used a pencil to trace where I needed to cut it. Then for this third circle piece, I glued this black velvet onto that piece and onto the cone. This part is very messy because the glue wants to stick to your hands and also stick onto the black velvet residue, so my hands were pretty messy after this. Next, to hide all the ugly paperboard, I glued together the top cone part of her hat and the top layer of the brim. Next, using some Fabri-Tac glue, I glue the top part of her hat to the bottom part of her hat. Even though this took a while, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out because it hid any unwanted seams. And to finish off this hat, I used some ribbon and tulle to accessorize it. And to make her broom, I take these cake pop sticks for the actual base of her broom. I use this ribbon to accessorize it, this chunky yarn for the bristles, and this glitter glue to make the handle a bit more stable. And here is her broom all finished. I really like how small and delicate it is. Since she is a sweet witch, I didn't want it to be too harsh or too big on her. And as a last minute accessory, I decided to make this girl a glass bottle purse. So I made her a simple strap using this chain and lobster clasp, and I'm also going to accessorize it with this crystal I found at Hobby Lobby. Then I took one of my glass bottles and filled it up with this glitter and holographic flakes, and if you want to see a tutorial on that, I do have one on my DC Superhero Girl. I think it is my second video. But with her final accessory done, it is time for photos. And here she is, guys. I am so excited. I am so happy that she is ready for Halloween. She is ready just in time to go trick-or-treating with my little sister, maybe. I think definitely my favorite part about this doll is the hat. I was very meticulous when creating the hat because I didn't want any unfinished seams visible, and I also really like how poofy the dress is. Let me know what you guys really liked about this doll in the comments below. So this is the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really love creating these Halloween costume-inspired dolls this month. I really hope you guys love them as well. If you haven't subscribed yet, feel free. I am always making new videos. And while recording this voiceover, I am at about 365 subscribers, and that is just crazy to me. So I just want to give a big thank you to you guys. I really love making these videos and love your support. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in another video, and happy Halloween!